Welcome to the stories on Echoes of Revenge. Step into a world where love turns dangerous, revenge feels inevitable, and every story drags you deeper into the shadows of desire, betrayal, and the human heart. Let's begin today's story. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of my childhood home as I sat in the living room listening to my family discuss my professional failures with their usual mixture of disappointment and concern. Christmas decorations sparkled around us while my parents and sister Jennifer gathered for our annual year-end family meeting, a tradition supposedly meant to celebrate achievements and set goals for the coming year. Jennifer's partnership at Morrison Associates is official, Mom announced proudly, holding up the engraved nameplate that would soon grace my sister's corner office. Partner at 31. The youngest in the firm's history. Jennifer glowed with satisfaction, her designer suit and Hermès bag marking her as someone who'd finally made it in the competitive world of corporate law. The signing bonus alone was more than most people make in 2 years. Plus equity shares and a client development budget. Now that's what I call success, Dad said with genuine pride, the kind of paternal approval that had never been directed toward me. Building something real, creating value in the marketplace. I nodded along from my position on the couch, the same spot where I'd received countless lectures about ambition and achievement over the years. My simple slacks and sweater drew no attention compared to Jennifer's obviously expensive wardrobe. Which brings us to Sarah, Dad continued with a diplomatic sigh, turning his attention to his disappointing younger daughter. When will you get a real career? This government job has gone nowhere for 5 years. The monthly ritual had become so predictable I could recite both sides of the conversation. They saw me as the family underachiever, stuck in some mid-level bureaucratic position that barely covered my modest apartment rent. What they didn't know was that I owned a Georgetown townhouse outright and maintained investment portfolios that most hedge fund managers would envy. Maybe next year you'll finally be successful, Mom said with the kind of maternal optimism reserved for children who consistently disappointed but still deserved encouragement. Perhaps Jennifer could introduce you to some of her professional contacts. I could definitely arrange informational interviews, Jennifer offered with sisterly condescension. Entry-level positions at respectable firms. You'd have to start over, but better late than never. The irony was suffocating. While Jennifer negotiated pharmaceutical mergers and intellectual property disputes, I spent my days crafting economic policies that could destabilize entire nations. Her biggest case involved a $200 million acquisition. My routine decisions affected trillions in global trade. The important thing is steady income, Dad said, consulting his banking app with satisfaction. Thank goodness for the family trust fund. $25,000 monthly helps bridge the gap between your government salary and actual living expenses. They had no idea that their family trust fund was actually my diplomatic income, quietly transferred to support their comfortable lifestyle while they assumed I was struggling financially. The mortgage payments, vacation funds, and Jennifer's law school loans had all been covered by the daughter they considered a professional failure. My secure phone vibrated against my purse with the distinctive pattern reserved for highest priority State Department communications. The timing couldn't have been worse, or perhaps more perfect. Excuse me, I said, checking the encrypted message. Urgent. International crisis developing. Secretary of State requests immediate consultation. Motorcade dispatched to your location. More government business on Christmas Eve? Jennifer asked with theatrical exasperation, her partnership celebration clearly more important than whatever paperwork emergency required my attention. This is exactly why private sector careers are superior, actual work-life boundaries. I walked toward the kitchen for privacy, my secure phone continuing to buzz with urgent diplomatic communications. Through the window, I could already see the first signs of what was approaching. Unmarked vehicles positioning themselves strategically around our quiet suburban neighborhood. Deputy Secretary Richardson here, I answered, immediately shifting into the crisis management mindset that had shaped American foreign policy for the past 6 years. Sarah, thank God we reached you, came Secretary Martinez's urgent voice. We have a developing situation in the South China Sea. Chinese naval forces have fired on Taiwanese vessels, and Beijing is claiming territorial sovereignty over international shipping lanes. The implications hit me immediately. Chinese military aggression in international waters could trigger Article 5 NATO responses, potentially escalating into global military confrontation. What's the current diplomatic assessment? I asked, watching through the kitchen window as more government vehicles arrived, this time with diplomatic flags and security details that suggested this wasn't routine consultation. China's refusing all diplomatic channels. They've given our Pacific Fleet 6 hours to withdraw from what they're claiming as sovereign Chinese waters, or they'll consider our presence an act of war. Back in the living room, I could hear my family continuing their annual discussion of career achievements and future goals, completely unaware that their unsuccessful daughter was managing a crisis that could determine whether they'd wake up tomorrow in a world at war. Sir, I'll need direct communication with Beijing and authorization for immediate economic response protocols, I said as the lead vehicle in what was clearly a full State Department motorcade pulled into our driveway. Already arranged. The President authorized you to implement whatever economic measures necessary to prevent military escalation. The Chinese economy can't survive the sanctions package you developed last year. The sanctions package that could crash the world's second-largest economy within hours. The economic warfare protocols I designed specifically for situations where diplomatic solutions required immediate leverage against hostile powers. Sarah. Dad's voice called from the living room with growing confusion. There are some very official cars outside. A lot of them. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang with unmistakable authority. Through the front window, I could see Secretary of State Martinez approaching our door, flanked by senior State Department officials and diplomatic security personnel whose presence transformed our family Christmas gathering into an international crisis command center. That would be my boss, I said quietly, ending the Beijing crisis call. Dad opened the door to reveal America's chief diplomat in formal attire, his expression grave with the weight of potential global conflict. Good evening, Secretary Martinez said with professional urgency. I need Deputy Secretary Richardson immediately. We have 6 hours to prevent what could become World War III. The living room fell silent except for the soft sound of Jennifer's partnership certificate fluttering to the floor. Secretary Martinez entered our family living room followed by senior State Department officials who immediately began setting up secure communication equipment where moments earlier we'd been celebrating Jennifer's law firm partnership. Deputy Secretary? Jennifer's voice cracked as she processed the title. Sarah, what exactly do you do for the government? She serves as Deputy Secretary of State for Economic and Business Affairs, Secretary Martinez explained while his team established encrypted links to the White House Situation Room. The youngest person ever appointed to that position. She essentially controls America's economic relationship with every country on Earth. Dad stared at me like I was a complete stranger. But you said you worked in policy coordination. I coordinate economic policies that determine whether nations can access global banking systems, international trade networks and foreign currency markets, I clarified, watching real-time satellite feeds appear on portable screens. The sanctions frameworks I design can collapse entire economies within hours. Mom sat heavily in her chair as the implications crashed over her. The trust fund payments, those weren't from inheritance. Deputy Secretary Richardson has been funding your family's lifestyle while managing international economic crises, Secretary Martinez confirmed, consulting urgent intelligence reports. Her compensation package reflects the critical nature of her work, preventing economic warfare between superpowers. The devastating truth was becoming clear. Their unsuccessful daughter who needed financial support from a non-existent trust fund was actually one of the most powerful economic diplomats in the world, quietly subsidizing their comfortable life while they criticized her career choices. The Chinese situation requires immediate economic response, Secretary Martinez announced, turning to me with presidential authority. Beijing needs to understand that territorial aggression will result in complete economic isolation. Jennifer looked at the diplomatic security establishing protocols around our Christmas tree. Sarah, you're telling me you can crash China's economy? I'm telling you, I replied, accessing secure economic warfare protocols on my classified tablet, that I'm about to demonstrate why economic power matters more than military force in modern international relations. As my family watched their career failure daughter coordinate economic responses that could prevent World War III, they realized that some success is too classified to share during family discussions about partnership announcements and professional achievements. 4 hours later, Secretary Martinez announced that China had agreed to withdraw all naval forces from international waters, ending the crisis that had brought the world to the brink of military confrontation. Beijing backed down completely, Secretary Martinez told my stunned family as diplomatic equipment was packed away. Deputy Secretary Richardson's economic leverage convinced them that territorial aggression would cost more than they could afford to pay. As the State Department convoy disappeared into the Christmas Eve night, my family sat among the abandoned celebration materials and scattered secure communication devices. "We've been living off your success for years," Dad said quietly, his voice heavy with shame. "The mortgage payments, Jennifer's law school loans, our vacation fund, all paid for by the daughter we thought was unsuccessful." Mom was crying now, her annual goal-setting meeting destroyed by the revelation that her disappointing daughter had been funding their criticism of her achievements. "The irony," I said softly, "is that you've been celebrating careers built on the success you thought I'd never achieve. Some achievements, after all, are too sensitive to share, until international crises make recognition unavoidable."